This is the most mysterious period in Alauddin's life. We know a lot about him, but this period is kind of torn off. Legend is mixed with history. Maybe it was meant to be that way. A man who talked to genes. He didn't talk, but the truth is that he robbed. He has also had to rob because he had to feed a huge army, and a huge army without a fight never did anyone any good in history. That's a problem of greatest armies in the history. Alauddin lived to see many books, and we will deal with this mysterious moment. Always learn from books. Not from the internet, where anyone can write whatever they want. These videos do not delve into the subject in its entirety. It is not possible in short time. My goal is to interest you, and if you are interested, look for information on this subject in publications approved by universities. He was a man, and those are not really good. Everyone has something on their conscience. Those who go down in history generally choose demons as companions. He was handsome, that's true. But wouldn't we rather commit jauhar than be with him? Like every tyrant, he has something intriguing, right? Not everyone's tyrant. Exactly. Some wanted to deal with him. Alauddin Khaji and Rani Padmini. Rani Padmini, also known as Padmavat or Padmavati, is quite a mysterious figure. More legendary than historical, although many indicate that she existed, but history differs a lot from the legend. A few years ago, there was a lot of talk in the whole of Europe about the film about this character. For the death of actors, some gave huge rewards, because in the scenes of the film they dreamed of their kisses, how it could be possible a Muslim and a Hindu. The post-colonial quarrel is eternally alive. Churchill damaged it in the moment when was created border and killed more people than Germans during whole war and actually one day. Of course, let's stay calm. Far away. But we still have hiccups thanks to his decisions. About the East as Gertrude Bell rightly said, he had no idea. He destroyed it. If Alauddin really dreamed like that, Rani did not necessarily, and it is hard to see a lack of prudishness in these scenes, although films with Bollywood-style dances are definitely not something I love. Curiosity won out, however, and one can say that a perfectly sold historical production would probably have reached Europe, if not for that. The film opened the way for the actress to a world career, and rightly so, because she conveyed the spirit of Rajputs, even in the way she pronounced the legendary saying Rajputs are warlike, but Rajput women are more warlike than their men. Padmavati is certainly a feminist, but in the wise sense of the word, meaning by no means one of those flying around with banners. She knows what she is for and uses her assets perfectly. She does not deny her role and achieves her goal. One thing is certain, if Padmini existed, Alauddin met a worthy opponent. He is the progenitor of the character of Aladdin, but already in the tales of the Arabian Nights he was not very polite as in Disney films, and in real life he really had to fight for everything. To this day, this is a character whose military strategy we continue to learn, similarly to Tutmosis III. Padmini does not exist without Alauddin, and he, paradoxically, one of the greatest warriors of the era, became famous mainly thanks to her, although he should be remembered for something else. He saved the Indian civilization from the universal unification brought by the Mongol Empire, because he was the only one to defeat them at the height of their power. It is a pity that this film did not achieve the success of Jodha, because the film about Hira Kundari definitely improved the desire to explore the knowledge about the Mughals in Europe. Padmavat is a symbol of resistance and a woman's fight for her rights, dignity, the possibility of deciding about herself, and also a total fight for beliefs. Literally to the death, of course, in defense against the influence of another religion in India. Was it really about a religious war as Orthodox Hindus want to see it? It was not at all, and it was a much deeper matter, also political, if we assume that this woman existed and perhaps private. In fact, we do not know if this woman really existed at all. Unfortunately, in India, the names of the wives of Rajas or Sultans were not written down after they entered into marriage with them. This took place, for example, in the Turkish harem, the Russian Taram, thanks to which today we know the names of the most famous wives who crossed the harem gates after him. Wife is here bad word, but not always word sultana or basilissapas. Even if such a woman existed, she could have had a completely different name, and Padmavati was only her wedding name, which she received after getting married. Such a name is suitable to protect against evil spells. According to legend, Rani Padmini was the most beautiful woman of her time. She came from Sri Lanka, and at this point one should ask whether indeed someone from this region could not have been promised to Alauddin. She became the wife of Ratan Singh, and this man is indeed a historical figure. Here history connects with legend. Ratan Singh, Ratnasima, was the ruler of Chittor, part of Rajputana, and therefore a warrior and a very rich man. Rajputana is probably the strangest country in India. It was created thanks to nomads, robbers and other cutthroats who fled from other regions to avoid punishment for their deeds. These people gathered in the hottest and most inaccessible part of the Deccan Peninsula, where no one wanted to venture. Finally, they decided to close ranks and create their own state, or rather a consolidation of smaller states modeled on Greek polis, connected by various treaties into one larger entity. Thanks to their fighting nature, they created a very strong and eventually rich state, which even the British had a problem conquering. In 1303, the Sultan of Delhi Alauddin Khaji, a man with an extraordinary personality, a great Muslim warrior who was the first to defeat the mighty Mongol Chinese Yuan dynasty itself, created by the descendants of Genghis Khan together with his most famous warrior Zafar Khan, finally achieved the status he dreamed of. It is difficult to determine today whether he actually took part in the battle with him, or whether as a ruler he attributed Zafar's achievement to himself. He certainly met the Mongols when they devastated Delhi. He started poorly from a slave to the ruler of a huge country. He was one of the few who succeeded. Of course, political circumstances are also needed for this, i.e. a rather weak government around, but also the ability to use those around us and eliminate the unnecessary. The real Aladdin was ruthlessly brutal, but in reality he was a child of his era, when brutality was the norm. The Sultan decides to go to war with Rajputana. A man who always got everything he wanted, even if it meant taking the path over dead bodies to the goal, a very orthodox Muslim and conqueror of most of the peninsula, besieges the capital of the state of Chittor. At the moment legend is mixed with history. Alauddin declared himself Sultan on July 19, 1296. He considers himself Alexander the Great, at the same time a warrior worthy of the Prophet Muhammad. His influence reaches far, even the Turks who are overseas are subject to him. He probably started the tradition of wearing a tiara in the style of a Christian pope, which is also supposed to mean a Muslim religious leader. So he had to have a contact with those who heard about it. He truly knew that if you want to achieve something you have to wrest it away, and that is what he did. He fought for everything for himself. He was a brutal, perfect child of the era, but also an extraordinary man, not at all because he was probably bisexual. His harem was modeled on the Persian one, because Alexandros had one. Male lovers were nothing strange there, in contrast to the official structure of post-Byzantine harems. Defeating the Mongols in those times was not something easy. This man stopped the Yuan army, which probably saved India, and its traditions survived. His conquests did not result from fanaticism, but from the need for politics. In addition, there was an eternally empty treasury. His conquests did not result from fanaticism, but from the application of politics. A country based on an elite of warriors had to find work, and there was one thing to work. In addition, the treasury was empty. Warriors have to feed like predators, as someone once eats nicely, and the treasury and food may contain rich Hindu countries. He cannot attack these specified ones, because simply Quran, not allowed to attack others Muslim countries. Yep, it's deep subject, we don't speak about Quran now, and he wanted to be the religious leader of the peninsula. Disease during the period not only his. He was absolutely not a racist. His wives were Hindus. A man of Alauddin's stature would not have understood such women, had he been prejudiced against the term. A perfect politician, so a hypocritical pragmatist. That was what he was. He had to fill the budget with loot. According to legend, a certain Brahmin who spied on the royal couple of Rajputana during intercourse was expelled from the country for this act. The expulsion is demanded by the Rani herself, Padmavati. In revenge, he goes to the second most powerful man he has heard of, Alauddin, who from a poor man has just become a sultan, thanks to the murder of the previous sultan and taking his daughter as a wife, who will remain with him. And no wonder. Her husband visits her from time to time. She bore him a son. She has achieved a huge position. Like any sensible woman from that part of the world, she will wait for her husband to die so that she can become valid sultan. Europe has not been able to understand this since some point. These women had more freedom and power than European women, and it can be safely said that they were the first feminists, and yet they are considered stupid because they covered their faces on the street before became valid sultan. No one in Europe at that time introduced princesses to the mysteries of power, Or it happened rarely and they never had such freedom to decide about themselves as there. As valid they were all powerful. That was the episode. He was not the first to do so, because almost all sultans before him did so. The Brahmin informs him that in Chittor he will find the most beautiful and wisest woman in the world, the incarnation of the goddess Durga. He only has to conquer the city and kill her husband. Radhan Singh in this story is a very indecisive man, to be honest too trusting. First he is kidnapped by the Sultan, to be rescued from his hands by Padmavati, who agrees to meet with the Sultan on the condition that he comes with a harem. This harem is a disguised army. The Sultan agrees to this. There is a fight in the palace, and the couple manages to escape. The Sultan falls head over heels in love with this woman. She is the perfect woman for him, warlike, intelligent and beautiful. The old rule. The more you beat a man, the more he will respect you. According to legend, he never saw her, but that can't be true, because he was too wise to decide to wage war for a woman he knew nothing about. It is also not true that the Rani did not show him her face during the negotiations for her husband's release. The intelligence and cunning of this man are evidenced by his military achievements, and it is even more likely that his complaints about not receiving the promised wife could indeed be justified. Alauddin is angry, he hates opposition, but this opposition at the same time excites and intrigues him greatly. Probably first in the whole life something worked bad, someone told no. Such a personality is simply encourages even more to fight. After many months, he conquers the city and kills 3,000 Hindus, including Padmavati's husband. The capture of Chittor takes place on August 26, 1303. Here, history contradicts the legend. The descriptions of the event in the books of the Delhi Sultanate state that the Raja surrendered the city, after which he was pardoned, and what then? Let's get back to the legend? In any case, Rani decides to take the only possible step in this situation. To protect her honor and end the mad war, she chooses jauhar. The woman orders a huge pyre to be set up and the gates to the fortress to be closed. Interestingly, other women from the city join her. It is done. This one dream of Aladdin will not come true. The collective sati stops the further march. One may wonder if it was worth it, but sometimes self-annihilation is really the only way to punish the enemy, and at the same time the only way to free oneself from him. Rani Padmini achieved it. She had no choice. History is mixed with legend. Chittor was conquered, that is certain, but what about the Rani? Perhaps the ruler of Chittor actually survived, and the Rani did not, or perhaps she lived to a ripe old age at her husband's side. Alauddin, if he really wanted this woman, must have had some other purpose in it. In reality, it may not have been about the woman at all, but about the wealth of Chittor, and this could have been a pretext. The Mongol invasions and the economic situation of his country after natural disasters prompt the ruler to look for money to maintain his own state. Alauddin decides to go on plundering raids for the same reasons that decided the Viking expeditions. It was his profession from his youth, and it so happens that Rajputs are not poor. He also has the same problem that the Italian states and the later Ottoman Empire have on a smaller scale. He has a mercenary army. The art of war distinguishes two types of army, national and mercenary. No one cares who got into it and how. A mercenary army is a deadly machine, but it has one huge flaw: it has to be fed. Of course, it means feeding with war. Otherwise, they will destroy your own country. He had to feed them. Jauhar is one of those phenomena created in Asian civilization that a modern European will not understand at all. There is no point in even trying to explain anything to people who compare the mentality of even 50 years ago to today's and do not understand that this is not done. Each generation thinks differently. Although of course this civilization wrote a lot of works about the unfortunate fate of Indian widows who are left with nothing and starve on the street if they do not have this ridiculed ton of jewelry on them. This jewelry is not worn in the East for decoration, but with the awareness that if something happens you can sell it. Unfortunately, during every war money is of little use, and gold then even in Europe returns in price. This will not change. This was one of the reasons why Yuan gave up paper money even though he invented it. You have to be brave for jauhar. Here no one is pushing you like to the inquisitorial stake, although these people are of course subjected to the effects of several narcotic substances, including nerve-paralyzing ones. We are not praising jauhar here, but we cannot pretend that such a thing did not exist. It was a form of protest, and it was also a form of actually ending the miserable fate of a widow, which is still not miraculous even in today's India, but better than then. It was always an event that aroused many feelings, but for people from that civilization it was a noble death, honorable. It can be compared to seppuku, for sure. Perhaps Ratan Singh's wife thought that surrender meant weakness and decided to take this step. However, such an event is not recorded anywhere in any books, and it would have echoed, and this raises questions from the beginning. This siege of Chittor, lasting many months, also coined a popular saying in various parts of Asia: everyone has their own Chittor. Regardless of what actually happened in Chittor, whether it was a bloody massacre or a pitiful surrender, something happened there so uncomfortable and perhaps terrible for both sides that they preferred not to talk about it. What is the truth about the Rani and jauhar? We do not know this, because no sources record the jauhar associated with the conquest of Chittor. Historians argue on this issue. Some claim that the Rani got into Yasir and ended up in the Sultan's harem, but then why didn't her husband get into Yasir? Yasir doesn't work like that. The husband would have to give up his wife willingly. Not that part of world. Yasir for Sultan is possible, but with his wife and it mean existence in well-common apartment. That's why when we speak about Bayezid came words golden cage. These authors base their theory on the fact that jauhar was in history actually happened, and what Alauddin saw was so horrible that he would have preferred it not to be recorded anywhere. The undefeated Alauddin could have really felt a huge defeat because his dream had not come true. If Ratan survived and became governor, he also preferred not to brag about what his wife had done. So the jauhar could have happened, but everyone preferred to keep quiet about it. In the film, the jauhar scene was presented perfectly. In reality, Alauddin did not forbid the practice of other religions, although he himself was an orthodox follower of Islam. He knew perfectly well that nothing could be built by a religious war of economic power in such a region rich in various religious ideologies, but with time of conquest he focused his attention on Hindus. He was not as tolerant as Jalaluddin Akbar, whose dream was destroyed by his son. Would he have taken a Hindu as a wife? He had already married one wife of a conquered Raja, Kamaladevi, who was a Hindu he had met earlier than Padmini, and the woman became his favorite and advised him on many issues, competing in this matter with the famous eunuch Kafur. There is no evidence that he slept with Kafur, but it cannot be ruled out. Although the rumors could have arisen from the fact that Alauddin trusted only him, and if he was plotting something, only Kafur knew about it. He was a seasoned politician, a born politician in fact, and they do not know how to love and perfectly separate sex from their emotional life. The ruler developed Indian trade on a large scale, and thanks to it goods from this part of the world flowed to Europe. Thanks to him pepper reached the European table. He knows that the country must be opened in some areas, but also made tight in others. His sultanate was a power, as evidenced by the fact that no one took away his right to be the leader of Muslims living far away, some nations from Silk Road as well. The story of Kamaladevi is most similar to the story of Padmavat. It was also the first mixed marriage of a Muslim ruler. A firman was issued. Suleiman certainly followed this precedent, as did his contemporary Akbar. There are no such regulations for women for a simple reason. Just as Henry VIII decided to separate himself from the church in order to get married. He would never get a divorce from Catherine, they were too attached to the Pope. He would get one from anyone else. So these men created the law for the situation they found themselves in, according to their needs. It was not thought that some Muslim woman would ever want a Christian husband. Suleiman wanted a Christian harem. He even allowed his first son to be baptized, for peace of mind, if his beloved wanted it. It was for his own needs, not everyone's. That is why he has flaws, but those fiery feelings, whatever they were. Suleiman certainly loved harem, just like Akbar loved Hira. Henry was probably in love. People to this day have a problem distinguishing between them. Infatuation passes. Love does not. Suleiman remained a widower. The harem does not have concubines after marriage. Henrik went through a lot before he came across the last one, also unlucky, but he managed to die, or he was already at that age when he had had enough and didn't want to. He tried to go back to Anne de Cleve, and it seems that this marriage could have worked out. Too late though. She preferred this side role. With Jane too, but she died. They would never allow such tests, but they certainly saved her life by giving her the opportunity to stay in England, which was also a precedent. It's a mysterious matter. Probably less mysterious than some people think, but she had to present some evidence that she would be better off here, and it had to shake someone who was hard to shake. Paradoxically, it was the parta that had a huge impact on the formation of the zanana, not necessarily the harem, gynoecium, or taram. It was the parta that caused the women of the zanana to be cut off from the world. Our wedding folk costume weighs about 10 kilograms, theirs similarly or more. Chittor had several jauhars. It has become a form of tradition there, because it is doubtful that Akbar wanted to force anyone to change their religion. Not him, but the jauhar happened anyway. Exceptional courage, perhaps resulting from the strong cult of Kali, slaughtered the city. Most likely yes. He would be capable of that if he didn't get what he wanted. Everyone has their own Chittor.